Alright, so this is a video a few people have requested for, so I'm just going to be telling my story, why I am the way I am today, why I make the content I do, how my spirituality has evolved over the years, and why it plays such a big role in my life, and also where I see it going in the future. So the first memory I have of anything relating to religion or spirituality goes back to when I was around 5 or 6 years old, when my grandparents, who are devout Catholics, when for my birthday they gave me this sort of Jesus cross thing, and the idea was that I would hold it when I was supposed to pray, and then my parents, who are not religious at all, told me there's no reason I should use it, so I just never did. And then from that, it kind of implanted the belief in me that religion is dumb and that there's no reason I should really follow it. And then as I got older, like around age 10 or 11, I naturally just started questioning reality because, well, existence is very mysterious, and because I never had any beliefs pushed on me by my parents, I was pretty free to come to my own conclusions about things because, I mean, if I had been indoctrinated with some sort of religious dogma, I would have just filled in the void of not knowing with dogma, and then I wouldn't have been wondering about these things as much. So I'm grateful for that, simply because I didn't have the social survival pressure to conform to a certain belief system. But when I was like 12 years old, learning about science and biology and evolution in school, I was very interested in it because it helped me answer those nagging existential questions that I had been constantly wondering about. So I started to take on the belief that no, it wasn't a man in the sky that created everything, like some people seem to think. It was just the natural process of the universe that happened. It was evolution that created us humans, so because the field of science was helping me answer those questions I had, I naturally turned to that same field for trying to discover who I really am and what my purpose is for being here on this earth. So you could say I used science for my spirituality. So because of that, it became very easy for me to begin following an atheist line of thinking. So at that time, my worldview was something like, yeah, the universe started with the Big Bang, the universe went about its natural processes, then eventually the sun and earth were created, then life began, it evolved, and now here we are. And it's all just a coincidence that we're here, there's no inherent reason for it, and it's just a stroke of luck that I exist. I shouldn't even exist, but just a stroke of luck. And then when it came to life after death, I just thought it was lights out after we die, no more experience to be had because all experience is generated by the brain, and when the brain dies, well, then there can't be any more experience. That's kind of how I thought. So that's how I thought for a while, and I thought I would be an atheist for life because I thought science was king. But then around age 16 or so, I started to stumble upon some YouTube videos about astral projection and lucid dreaming, and I remember for like 6 months I tried to astral project, but I could just never do it. But I did have a few lucid dreams, which was pretty cool. And that whole endeavor made me realize that the human experience goes so much deeper than this everyday normal state of consciousness that we're in 24/7. And at first, this didn't conflict at all with my atheist identity, but gradually as I was growing up and progressing through my teenage years with my brain developing more, I began to notice that my beliefs, which I had held to fairly rigidly, were not at all that much different from the religious people that I had demonized so much. Yes, a lot of what I believed was derived from science, which is a lot better than believing everything out of some book, but I was beginning to meet the whole matter with radical honesty, and I realized that the whole matter probably goes way deeper than anyone can imagine, and I began entertaining paradoxes such as how no one can prove consciousness exists, yet I know that I am conscious. So what I realized I had done was that I filled in the void of not knowing with beliefs. I did what humans from all cultures in history had done. I had wondered about reality. I had tried to figure out this whole existence thing, and I adopted beliefs that made my ego feel comfortable and secure in itself. And now that I have a much deeper grasp on how the ego mind works, I realize that it is not advantageous for the ego to not feel like it has a grasp on reality. The ego wants to be in control. It wants to feel like it knows because it must feel like it knows in order to create an identity and generate meaning for itself. So I, just like the vast majority of people are, was not content at that time with not knowing. Therefore, I filled in the void of not knowing with beliefs. And the thing with the ego is that it doesn't necessarily care if the beliefs are true or not. The ego just needs the beliefs to work. But the thing is, the ego will trick you into thinking that your beliefs equal the truth, because if the ego admits that they could be wrong, well, then the ego doesn't feel secure anymore. And security is the number one thing the ego needs. So I was around 16 years old when I began to realize all that. And from then on, I started identifying as agnostic rather than atheist, because at that point where I was like, I don't know, I don't think I ever possibly could know. So I was finally content with not knowing. I began to be much more accepting of different beliefs, and I wasn't so dogmatic and rigid in how I thought. And at that time, I was at the point where I had to start thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. I had to start applying for colleges. I had to start thinking about what my major would be and what I would potentially be doing as a career 5, 10, 20 years down the road. So at that time, the main concern of my life became about improving myself and figuring out who I really am as a person. And it was at this time that I was also very depressed. I had my heart broken by a past girlfriend, and I had also quit basketball, which I considered a core part of my identity for the past 8 years or something. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was completely lost at that point. So I got really into self-improvement. I continued along that self-improvement path. I started working out, started changing my style, my clothing, how I carry myself. So there was a big change in me from my junior to my senior year of high school. I would say I had a pretty decent glow up, but anyway, I graduated high school and had decided to go to community college in order to save money, so I'd be living at home. And I knew it'd be a pretty lonely 2 years because I had planned to work a lot and start a side gig, which is now my YouTube channel, The Curious Minds, in order to make money. And in trying to improve myself, I began to read a lot of self-help books and learn about various philosophies such as Stoicism and stuff like that. But another thing I started to look at was psychedelics, because I heard countless stories of people having profound spiritual experiences and having their lives absolutely transformed just from a few hour psychedelic trip. And I had also begun to learn about all the amazing research that's been concluded in the past 10 years about psychedelics and healing mental health. I read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, and I found out that, their psychedelics are very promising for healing mental health. Specifically, I was interested in depression because I was often very depressed. So I ended up trying some psychedelics, and that's where my life, as many of you know, absolutely changed forever. And this video is running pretty long, so I don't want to elaborate too much on what happened specifically. If you want to know about my specific trip reports and insights, go check out some of my other videos. But the most powerful insight I got was the insight into the nature of the ego, the nature of the self, and I finally realized what enlightenment, which is what the Buddha talks about so much, actually is. Because on these trips, specifically the ones where I had full ego deaths, I was able to witness right in front of my eyes the deconstruction of my entire sense of self. My sense of being a separate person, separate from the rest of the world, completely dissolved right in front of me, and it was like merging with the entire universe. I became directly aware that I, along with everyone and everything else in the universe, are one. I remember it felt like homecoming, like that oneness is my true nature. And I remember thinking, how could I forget this? How could I have forgotten that I am one with the entire universe? So when I finally stopped tripping and said, all right, it's integration time, the trajectory of my life could just never be the same again. It's impossible to forget seeing past the illusion of separation, even though you're back in your normal everyday state of consciousness, because it just fundamentally changes who you are as a person. So when I'm talking with a group of my friends, I don't interpret it as a bunch of separate selves talking to each other. I see it as the universe having a conversation with itself. If I'm mad at someone, I know I'm only mad at myself. If I'm in love with someone, I'm in love with myself. And you can take this even further and apply it to the worst atrocities that have ever happened in human history. Every war that's ever happened has been the universe fighting itself. The Holocaust was the universe mass murdering itself, and the only reason that happens is because the individual pieces, the egos, don't know that who they are killing is literally them. So with this realization, I now try to make my morals, my political stances, etc. in alignment with the assumption, even though it may not necessarily be true, that I will live through every lifetime of every single human ever. If you knew you would live through every single lifetime, I'm sure your political stances and how you live your life would be radically different. And this whole oneness thing, I go more in depth in it in my video called What is Oneness? A Life-Changing Explanation of Non-Duality. So, I gave a brief explanation of it there. It might sound very weird if you've never had this experience, but I encourage you to check out that What is Oneness video that I created, and I encourage you to research about oneness in other areas as well, because it's life-changing once you experience it directly. It sounds very hippie and woo-woo when you just hear it from someone like me talking about it, but it's a direct experience that you can have. So now what my life is about is deepening my consciousness and my understanding of this stuff and embodying it into my everyday life. So that means not only increasing my own consciousness, but also making my life's work, my job, and my career directly in alignment with this oneness. I want as many people to realize as possible that they are not their ego. They are actually one with the entire fucking universe. They are everyone and everything. The separation is an illusion. And don't take it as some hippie woo-woo thing. Oh, we're all one. It's a direct realization that you can have. You can directly realize that separation is an illusion, and that therefore your true nature is absolutely boundless. So if you want to give me a label now, you can just say I'm spiritual. I don't mind that label at all. I now laugh at atheist versus Christian debates because the whole debate of God versus no God, in my opinion, is such a false dichotomy. It's like, oh, well, there's either a supreme being, separate from us, who created the entire universe, or there's no divinity or no form of higher power at all. It's way more complicated than that, and thinking in these dichotomies is just such ape logic. So one of my major life missions is to promote deeper forms of spirituality, particularly rooted in having direct experiences of the divine. So I'm really motivated in my life to also help close the duality between science and spirituality, because they're so deeply intertwined, yet mainstream society doesn't seem to think so. I also want to tear down this horrible stigma around psychedelics that exists in mainstream society, and I want to promote the safe, cautious, and controlled use of them, because they're very powerful, and the science is beginning to back up their magnificent potential as well. And I really just want to do whatever it takes to move humanity closer towards oneness and out of such strong identification with ego, which keeps humanity divided and separated and causes all sorts of evil and suffering. And this YouTube channel is a part of that. I'm thinking one day I want to be a sort of therapist or life coach, specifically oriented towards people going through spiritual awakenings, and I also want to compose influential literature about this stuff, books and stories, and maybe even some films. I don't know, we'll see. But right now, this YouTube channel is the start of it for me. I'm beginning to learn about marketing and that stuff, so more I see my content, because I only get like 1,000 or 2,000 views per video now, and I need to make more fucking money because I need to survive. So that's what I'm occupied with right now. But if you want to support my cause, consider joining the Patreon. If you got a few extra dollars to shell out each month, that'd be a great help to me. We also have a book club on there, and I post some other exclusive content on there as well. But of course, guys, no pressure. You can just watch my videos. I get the ad revenue from that, so no pressure. But that's my story, guys. That's my spiritual awakening story. I'm 20 years old right now, by the way, just for reference, because I referenced my past age so many times in the video. So that's it, guys. Follow me on Instagram if you want to get a hold of me. I'll answer all DMs. If you got a question, send me one. And as always, guys, have a great day and peace.